Hi, I'm Ananya. I'm a junior content manager with Trip 101. Today we're meeting Patrick. He's the owner of a beautiful property called Casa de Ligaya. It's located in Mabini, Philippines. And today we're going to learn all about this beautiful property and the location that he's in. So over to you, Patrick. Please tell us about yourself and the property that you run.
Well, thank you, Ananya, for this interview. Welcome. My name is Patrick, and I'm running the transient home called Casa de Ligaya in Mabini. It's a practically 800 square meter property. One of the things that I love about it is that it's only 5 meters away from the beachfront. That particular property focuses really on the vast view of the beachfront with the perfect sunset. And I say perfect because you don't see any major mountains on the left or on the right. You just have an unobstructed view of the sunset. And I think that in itself speaks thousands to people who wanted a relaxing and probably a calming staycation. And that is one of the biggest differences that we have in our property. The other thing is that we are very close to Anilao. Essentially, to simplify things, I just say that we are in the Anilao area. But I was telling Trip 101 that generally we are in a town beside Anilao, under the Mabini area. The beachfront not only looks spectacular, but if you love to do snorkeling or even want to try an intro dive, you can just do it in front of the house. I would say that the corals are quite lush. It has a variety of species, particularly fish that are popular for aquarium keepers. We have a lot of Nemos or the clownfish. I think that also tells you how clean, how diversified, and also how well taken care of the bay is. We call it Balayan Bay. I believe it's one of the most pristine areas that is practically 2 hours away from the metro. It is also in a bay or a cove, Balayan Bay, which essentially allows you to not worry about strong currents, not worry about big waves compared to beachfronts that are facing open water. And it's quite safe and predictable. So I used to have a banca, which is what they call that is a wooden boat with essentially rafters on the side. And probably around 7, 8 years ago, I would just take that and use a manual paddle to pretty much traverse the coastline and essentially enjoy the calm, look at the view. And if you're lucky, you get some fish following you. So those are the experiences that I think would be very memorable and probably something that you cannot verbally describe. You got to experience it. And that's one of the things that I've decided to essentially push with Casa de Ligaya Anilao is really the experience of our guests. What do I mean by experience? The beach house itself is essentially nothing too fancy. Yes, it's made of concrete. We use all the indigenous materials there, bamboo, the rocks, and all the other local wood that we can. But we wanted to give it a feel of a family home, something where you can bring your family, your children, and pretty much just sit back, relax, and enjoy the view. And for me, that's important because if you make the beach house too beautiful and you put furniture that's something you see in a hotel, it kind of gives that distance or it kind of makes the guests uncomfortable because they might break things. If they have a child, they might be worried that this child might be destroying or tampering on things that shouldn't be tampered. And we don't want that. I mean, guests are already stressed in probably the hustle and bustle of work. So we want them to just leave that all behind and just have a home that will allow them to sit back, chill, be able to have conversations with their family, and more importantly, build the experiences in that house and also with the beachfront that could be hopefully discussed many years from now, or even be convinced to come back again. So it's a simple thing that I and my assistant try to do. And we were lucky enough that even during the pandemic, when the local government kind of opened up the ability for people to move in places, we were still lucky enough to get bookings. And I think the reason for that is we made the process simpler. We really abided by what is required. Let's say you have your immunity card, but that's it. We don't really hassle the customers or the guests to be too conscious about what they need to do because it is essentially their whole property. We're not mixing any guests. And I think that's also one of the things that was really appreciated because we're running it not like a hotel. A lot of people were asking me, will we have other people or other guests together in the property? And I say, no, that whole 800 square meter of property is going to be only for that family or a group of people who booked in that particular area. And I think that simplicity and that honesty to tell them what they expect or what they will be expecting is something that I believe people appreciate. The other thing that I also share with them is that there are possibilities for other things that they can do. Like, for example, we are essentially 20 minutes away from the base of the trail to Gulugud Baboy. That is a popular mountain where campers can actually go either from our side or from the Batangas Bay side and pretty much experience the 360 view of the Mabini archipelago or peninsula. And that is quite interesting because you basically will be able to experience the sun rising essentially from the east and get a perfect shot early in the morning. And you could also get a perfect shot of the sunset coming into the west at the end of the day. And that, I think, is also something unique because we're quite near to that. And hikers who want to spend a night in Gulugud Baboy are able to do so without having to worry about having to lug all these things back and forth from their transient home. Now, some history of why I started this. Well, essentially, my family got that property or the adjacent property many years prior. In 1977, the family, acquired the property beside Casa de Ligaya. And that essentially was purchased because I had some respiratory issues in the city, and they realized, the doctor said that Patrick has to be in front of fresh air to be able to improve his respiratory condition. And my parents bought that, and I fell in love with it. I spent a lot of my childhood growing up during summers, enjoying that area. Mind you, that was in the 70s. There was no road going to that area. There was no electricity going to that area. And essentially, it was just heaven on earth, at least for me, because everything was so pristine and untouched. And as I mentioned earlier, it's considered a diving spot. You could just imagine the amount of coral reefs and the amount of rocks that were there at the time was really unbelievable. Of course, there was less communities taking care of it. It was actually also quite bad during the storms. But as the years progressed and as roads and communities became more aware about the environment, I would say that probably now it's even better than how it was in the 70s. Now, that essentially grew with us, that property grew with us. And we decided to purchase the adjacent one where I'm running the current property. And that allowed us to get a concept of providing and sharing that experience with guests. And when we found out about the Airbnb platform, we felt that it was a perfect property or piece of real estate that we can market and provide accommodations in a way that people can just experience what we experience without having the hassle to book or to blindly go to areas that they're not aware of. And I've started this late part of 2017, and it's been a great journey since. And there are things that we're thinking of expanding. Like, for example, some people were asking, oh, can you add a pool? Kids can swim. So something that we're thinking of, but we're also cautious about the fact that we don't want to disrupt much of the natural environment that we have, because pretty much the whole pool is really the sea, and we have areas where children can wade. But I do understand that there are some guests that are quite particular and don't want to really be at the sea per se. So we're looking at putting in a saltwater pool soon, and we're just currently studying the proper way to put it and the best way to ensure that the maintenance is not too much, yet at the same time, it's kept clean and essentially allow children to wade without having to physically go down. We also have ensured that we are also carbon neutral, and as much as possible right now we are using solar for our electricity purposes. We don't have batteries yet. At least now we're able to save close to 47% of our electric bill. And we're hoping that we can go close to zero once we implement the net metering process and accreditation in that system that we currently have. With the help of the internet, I think more and more people are becoming educated about good places that they can go to outside of Metro Manila. And Anilao, Mabini, and that area have been really known essentially divers. And it was really a close of people for many years because there was no way to advertise it. So we had a period where a lot of Japanese were investing in that area. A lot of Koreans were investing in that area. And that was a good thing because that actually catapulted communities that were now more conscious about the environment and making sure that fish and waste management are properly put in check. And I think among the three, the waste management is probably the thing that is still progress, but we have gotten a lot of positive developments in that area, primarily because the past 6 years, Mabini and Anilao per se has been booming as a diving area. So it's essentially going to be beneficial for the community and also for everyone who goes to that place if everything is kept clean, as well as garbage and waste is properly disposed. So my dream there is hopefully that will provide a system where we can connect all the waste and it gets properly processed. That's the dream that I have because right now it's still individually collected. I would like to see that, but we're taking baby steps. The plastics per se are being used for decorative purposes, and that I feel is already a big step. We always ensure, for example, that the rings of the bottle caps, when you open the bottle cap, there's this ring that they cut it so that it doesn't become like a handcuff in any situation where a marine animal would kind of use that or go through it and suddenly it gets stuck. Because as they grow, that ring will start choking or start impinging on the skin. And before you know it, it's already causing severe pain for those creatures. The frontage of the beach, plastic free and maybe garbage free, but 90% of the garbage, quote unquote, is really plastic waste. And that's something that we make sure that we collect and properly put in the disposal area where the LGU collects it and hopefully processes it properly. So I've seen quite a lot of improvement in that area over the years. And I'm very glad that the community itself realized that if they do that, then there will be more jobs, there will be more work to do, and more investments in that area would come in a way that they also are cautious about the environment where they will put their establishments in. And that's key because if my place is nice, but my neighbor's place is not, then what's the point, right? Because there's no borders in the sea. You spill waste in one part of the beach, that's going to spread in a bigger area of the sea. And before you know it, that experience will be lost. That positive experience will be lost. And that's really where I'm building that business with great positive experiences. And interviews like these, I'm hoping would also create a trigger to audiences that would say, yes, I do connect to what Patrick says, and I do want to experience that particular story that he was mentioning when he was a child or when he was doing his banca ride and enjoy that with my family. And I'm glad that the digital channels are here because that I believe catapulted all the other businesses that are critical in the Philippines, particularly tourism, because it allows people to see it without having to go through the hassle again of finding where can I go. I have visitors from, let's say, the US or from Europe. Where can I take them? So thank you for allowing me to share my experiences.
That's a lovely picture that you've painted for us of your property and also the initiatives that you're taking for keeping the beach clean and environmentally retaining that ecosystem which sustains your business, but is also your
Yeah.
place of living and being and something that you cherish. So it's really positive to see that you're taking steps to ensure its continuity, and that's really great. When you described the open sea and the sunset, I was also mentally picturing it. It was just like a wallpaper image that you created in my mind, at least. And that was quite, I would love to sort of witness it for myself. So that was really great. I wanted to know a little bit more about the beach itself that you're at. So, is that the public beach, right? Like it's a shared beach with other properties that are also in the area?
Yes, it is, Ananya. It is a public beach, but it doesn't feel that way. The unique thing about the homes or the places in Mabini is that we don't have big realty developers, unlike Nasugbu and other areas like San Juan, because that community started way before all these concept of developed villages, golf courses along the beach all came up. And these properties were maintained solely by the owners and essentially were kept either for personal use or were built so that it could be leased out to entities that are doing a lot of diving services. And as a result, the beach is not essentially populated similar to what you see in other establishments. That's one. Secondly, as I mentioned, it's a diving snorkeling area. So the shoreline is really filled with boulders and rocks no smaller than my fist. The good thing about that is that you get crystal clear water because you don't have any sand that gets disturbed when waves come in. Second, you invite a lot of marine life to grow and to flourish in these areas where there's a lot of rock. So, is it a good thing? I think for my purposes, it is. Because going back to the experience that I wanted to share with my guests, it's really getting away not only from the hustle and bustle, but also to get away from seeing a lot of people in an area where you're enjoying your sunset. So, yes, it's a public beach, but I would say 95% of the time, if you see someone, that someone's probably part of the community, or these are fishermen that are essentially bringing up their boats after their catch. Does it get full? Yes, in certain seasons like Holy Week, Christmas, but not full to the point that you get people you don't know in front of the property. And the frontage of the property is probably close to, I would say, 25, 30 square meters, at least for the property that I have. Then the one adjacent, which is also ours, that's probably another 40. meters. So you're looking at a frontage of close to 80 meters that is essentially empty. For me, it's an advantage because guests can either go down, bring their plastic chairs along the seashore, have a beer, have something to grill, bring the griller down, and enjoy the lapping of the waves on their feet, which is just 5 meters away from the entrance of the house. So it's something for me even better than going to Boracay because it's like your own private space. We don't put any water break in front, unlike some of my neighbors that kind of install these concrete walls so that they can get further into the sea. But we felt that will destroy the natural view and the feel of the property. I'm proud to say that we kept the frontage pristine and vanilla since the time we got it in 96. Of course, the rocks have lessened because we used that during the construction. I used that probably in 2019 when we renovated some parts of the pathway. So there are patches of sand, but what's amazing is that nature has a way of bringing back those rocks. It takes probably just 6 months or just a cycle of a storm. And you'd be surprised. In one quarter, you'll see a lot of sand, but after 2 quarters, they're all rocks again. So you kind of wonder, how the hell does the sea bring back these rocks? And it's just amazing. And right now, that's how it is ever since. I think it's good because it keeps the water clear. And that's one of the feedback that I get, that, oh my gosh, your water is so crystal clear. It's like swimming in an aquarium where you get fish and what have you. So, of course, there are seasons. During the summertime, it's better to swim in the afternoon than in the morning because summertime you get jellyfish, but that's just a periodic season, and it's also healthy for the corals because that provides food for all the fish. And the nice thing about that is that if you come in the afternoon, that's where you'll see a lot of fish, the big ones. You see a lot of triggerfish. You'll see a lot of what they call jacks, probably the cousin of the jacks, where they have the yellow fins. And you occasionally see some turtles. And that's an indication that the ecosystem is quite good.
I love that sentiment that you shared, that nature replenishes as long as you give it a little bit of time. And that's so true, that as long as human beings don't think.
I wanted to also share that during the Taal volcano eruption, which happened probably first part of 2019, we thought that everything would already be in shambles because all the ashes went to the sea. And if you look at the bottom, you really felt like there was this coat of sand, black sand in all the corals. So there was a period in time where there was really no fish, nothing to see. But that was also the time the pandemic struck in 2020. And when I reopened in 2021, wow, you just could see a stark difference of all the new life that has propped up because of the ashes from the volcano. So, yes, Mother Nature has a way of replenishing things, but the key thing is just give it time. You shouldn't rush anything, just like a good wine. Wine cannot be rushed. A good cognac or a good whiskey cannot be rushed. Time, age it properly.
Yeah, and it's so important to remember that in today's day and age when we look for instant gratification. Moving on, earlier you give us a little bit of hint into like what season and time is good for swimming and all of that. I wanted to know, do you have like specific months when it's a really good time to visit Casa de Ligaya, and or are there like really busy months that you have with your guests?
Yes, the best time to be in Casa de Ligaya Anilao. Uh, and Ananya, I want to say we have to put Anilao in that name because there is another Casa de Ligaya in the area, but it's in the mountains. So just be wary about that. But yes, between the bear months, November, December, January, February, and March are probably the best times to go because you get the cool air, you get the blue skies, and you essentially don't get yet the flies. Now, why do I say the flies? Because summertime, that's when the mango season happens. And we have a very old mango tree beside the property, which we get mangoes from. Of course, since we don't technically live there every day, it's just so abundant. There's just so many mangoes that the community asked permission from me to, if they can take it, and I say yes, by all means, because once they fall and you leave it there, then it attracts flies. And that's during the months of end of March, April, and May. So that, I would say, is the peak of summer. And yes, we still get people there, but I cautiously tell them that, there will be more flies on those times when you have lunch because it's mango season. And they understand that. And I say that because I would say probably 90% of my guests are local, meaning they're from the Philippines. 10% are outside. So do I want to open this up more to foreigners? Of course, as long as I tell them that, hey, this is more of a transient home. It's not a hotel kind of thing. So if you kind of put that expectation, then you're good. You'll have a good experience. And of course, people cook there. I tell them to bring their own ingredients, and depending on the season will also drive the kind of things that they can buy in the market, because 6 kilometers away we have a wet market that you can buy good produce, vegetables, meat, but I would say that the seafood selection is quite diverse, from a good yellowfin slab of meat for sashimi, all the way to indigenous, or I wouldn't say indigenous, but locally caught soldier fish. These are the ones with the big eyes that are color red, that are really so tasteful if you grill them. And of course, there's octopus, there's also a lot of shellfish, but they're almost all bought out by 10 in the morning. So you got to be there by 6 a.m. So I tell the guests that if you're going to be coming in by 12, I suggest the next day go visit that market so that you can enjoy some of the local seafood delicacies and selections that Mabini has to offer. During the rainy periods, it's also quite interesting because the waves are much bigger. The color of the sea becomes more of a greenish hue with the gray sky background. And it gives you also a sense of calm in a way, at least for me, because you just focus on the movement of the waves and nothing else bothers you. At least for me, I don't turn on my radio. I don't really watch TV when I'm there. I used to not look at my phone, but now that we have Wi-Fi, of course, I do need to look at it more often than I would like to. But putting those all aside, that's also a time where I would reflect. It's also a time to do some soul searching, because you get the rain, you get the wave. No one's really out in the other resorts that are vacationing. Divers are probably much less because of the currents. So that gives you now a window where you can really see how diverse, how vast, how strong, and how dependable we are with the sea. And that is also another experience that I hope people are willing to take on, because it connects you more with nature. And that is quite important also for me personally, because I guess I'm that kind of person that really needs to connect to nature every once in a while. Do we have brownouts or electric disruptions? Yes, we do. So I have a generator on top of my solar, because I want to make sure that we have power that can support all the critical loads of the property, except for air conditioning. So you do have the generator will cover the fans, will cover all the outlets, will cover Wi-Fi. But we felt that putting in air conditioning during a brownout is not that practical. And we noticed that brownouts are already communicated in advance. So if we set the expectation, that would be most of the time okay with the guests. And the LGU has limited the brownouts during the day. So normally it'll be back by 5 p.m. They'll cut it off at around 9 a.m. It'll be back by 5 p.m. So that in the evenings, you can turn on the air conditioning so you get a comfortable sleep. Does it get really hot and humid? Of course. During the summertime, it can be reaching up to 38 degrees Celsius. If there's no wind, if we get through a bad season, and it'll rain, so the humidity is quite high, and that's where we make sure that all our air conditioning units are in good shape so that we give that comfort for our guests.
Is that same period that you mentioned from November to Feb onwards also what the divers prefer? Like they're in the area at that time as well?
Yes, divers essentially prefer those times. I would probably say they prefer January onwards because that's really the coldest part. And the reason why it's good to also dive in colder waters, you get species that are more attuned to colder temperatures. So you get dolphins coming in, you get more rays that are passing through. A lot of these species that I mentioned are really migratory groups. They don't really stay in the area. And you just have to catch the time where you can see that movement. And that is really a 20-minute bunker ride from the house, which divers really appreciate. So we're located in a place where everything is quite accessible. And yet at the same time, it's a beachfront that is kind of attuned for children to also wade. Because there are some resorts along the left side, which is called the San Jose area, where or Talaga area, where that is really choppy waters because you're facing a current, a channel between Batangas Bay and Balayan Bay. And that essentially creates a lot of turbulence. So waters are most likely more choppy, has more waves in more months of the year than what we have over here. Here we have more months where it's calm. When I say calm, it's almost like glass. There are times 3 p.m. during February where the waters are just so quiet. You could even hear a head of a turtle pop up. That's how quiet it is. And if you just get, a floater and just float and just look up at the sky, that's perfect. That's paradise for me here.
So if a guest staying at your house, they want to do snorkeling or diving, do they generally tend to get their own gear, or is it possible to rent it out in the area as well?
Prior to the pandemic, I used to have some masks and snorkels, but after that, I kind of encouraged them to bring their own. Now, we're thinking of putting back again more masks and snorkels, but I'm playing it by ear because a lot of the times, accidentally, they take it home and they forget that, oh, it's not theirs or they have to put it back. So we're still playing with the fact of playing with the idea of whether we should put like 12 pairs. Right now, I have 3 pairs and I have vests that they can use, but not for all the members because the house can accommodate up to 14 people, at least for the amount that I've mentioned in Airbnb. Now, we can add with additional fees per person per night. But for me, I keep the maximum head count to 18. Why? Because if you overcrowd a home or a house, then it becomes also quite uncomfortable. Secondly, you're more prone to having the house get damaged because people are moving, using the bathroom all the time, and there's less space to move around. So I tend not to go beyond 18, and I just make sure that that we keep it that way.
Okay, that sounds about right, and it makes sense. And if someone's really interested, they can sort of bring their own gear, or I'm sure it's possible to also buy when they are in the vicinity of an
Yeah.
Anilo because it's quite a
Yes, yes,
popular
that's
diving
true.
location. Yeah.
Yes.
To some of the amenities you earlier mentioned that you recommend to your guests to buy at the market, so you must have like a full kitchen at the house,
Yes.
definitely.
We
Um,
have a full kitchen. When I say full, we have plates, utensils for up to 14 people. We also have some knives, but if you are particular about cooking, I would suggest you bring your own chef's knives because that will allow you to do the proper slice. And we get the actual cooking done outside of the house. So the kitchen that I show in Airbnb, there are two. There's an inside kitchen where that's where the cooked food gets prepared and served into the guests. But the actual cooking happens outside because I don't want really the smell of the oil, all the splatter marks, the cleaning. of, let's say, gutting the fish or taking out certain fat from the meat. I all want that done outside so it could be easily disposed of, and that the flies, if ever, would not be mixing with guests who are in the house. They are provided towels as well as body wash and shampoo for all the bathrooms. So we have pretty much a total of four bathrooms in the property, and one of the four is an outside bathroom and shower. Because if you come out from snorkeling or you come out from wading from the sea, we prefer that you rinse off all the sand and all the salt in the outside bathroom before using the bathrooms inside. That would help maintain the drains as well as make life easier to the cleaners because they don't have to sweep up the sand. We have hot water, so the inside bathrooms have multi-point heaters, which is for me very useful at certain times, especially in January when water is quite cold. And we also have a shower outside. As I mentioned, we don't put any heater because, at least for me, I like taking showers cold. I don't like really hot showers. And that kind of refreshes me. So some people enjoy that. And we made this makeshift bamboo where it has holes. And when you turn on the valve, it gives you that sprinkly effect of the water. And you can just stay under it and rinse if you don't want to take yet a full shower, assuming that, let's say, you're going to go back to the sea after lunch or what have you, and you just want to rinse off, you can do that. Sit on the chairs in front, enjoy the view, have lunch until you're quite dry. Then you can go back again to the sea. And after that's when you take your after that you can take your formal shower with shampoo and your conditioner and the body wash in time for your cocktails before dinner. So we really provide the basics. We don't have hair dryers. We have first aid kits, the shampoo, the body wash, towels for taking a bath, not towels for the beach. And we made sure that the kitchen is complete because I think part of the experiences that are made are really during times when the family get together and eat. And it's the cooking experience that, again, is one of the things that we provide flexibility. And yes, my kitchen is okay. It's nice, but it's not something so pristine that people will be worried about, not knowing how to work this sub-zero refrigerator or this oven. No, we have a basic gas powered range, which is outside. We have your rice cooker, you have your plates, we have charcoal, we have a griller, and that's it.
Yeah.
And we have refrigerator, so you can put your meats and your beers and your favorite drinks, and a dispenser so that you can get cold refreshments. And I think that's really what it is, no? That makes that day. Now, on the flip side, to make sure that things are good, I always focus on the bathrooms and the bedrooms, that they are always clean and that the beds are properly made and the rooms are also clean. So those are the priorities when we start fixing after the guest comes in. We make sure that the bathrooms are done really well, nothing's leaking, everything's working. Then we go to the bedrooms to make sure that all the pillows, the sheets are properly washed, laundry pressed, and we go to the kitchen. Then that's after those three, that's where we do the general part of the house. And I think that's from experience because me, whenever I check in a hotel, I really take a look at, I gauge the cleanliness based on how clean the bathroom. And I do tell my staff that, something I noticed when I visited Japan was that they were particular about making sure that the mirrors and the glass are really clean. There's no fingerprints, there's no dust, and it kind of makes a big difference. If the bathroom and the mirrors are really spotless, and your windows in your rooms are also clean, that gives you already a sense like, oh, I feel at home. And I feel like, I can just relax even if it's not my. So those are the operational focus that I do to make that experience a reality as much as I can. And of course, your other things like making sure that all the light bulbs are working and that nothing is busted. Those are the things that just have to do. And it's quite a challenge. I think one of the reasons why a lot of people have a hard time running a business like this near a beachfront is because they don't realize that salt in the long run is so corrosive that even if you wipe everything, it's still going to eat certain things, especially if it's made out of metal. That's why I said earlier, when we furnish the house, we use a lot of wood, a lot of indigenous materials because we know it will last. And appliances like TVs and all these things should be simple enough because we know it will rust. And that's what I think a lot of people don't realize. When they have this place, they make it so nice. And yes, it's wow, really nice. But if you're there for the long haul, before you know it, this thing's busted, this thing has rust, this thing is not working, and it becomes a money pit. And a lot of those things, I think, the guests don't really care because they're not there to watch TV. They're not there to see how nice your griller is or whether your oven or refrigerator is made out of this really nice high-tech AI thing. They just want to make sure it works and that their bathrooms and their beds are clean and that they can enjoy. And that's the secret of how we continue to make this run and make it earn and at the same time make it enjoyable without having to make it feel like you're a slave to the property.
That were quite some useful insights that you shared into how to run a beachfront property. But also the amenities that you mentioned, they were quite thoughtful about like how the guests will actually move around the house or like it flies that way. So there's an exterior kitchen where they can sort of do the front walk and then head back over to the inside one to the delicate process of actual cooking. Yeah. So I think I get a fair idea of how you operate at Casa de Anilao. So moving
Yes.
on to the neighborhood that you're in, could you tell me a bit more about like if there are any restaurants in the area where one can also step out for a meal, or what sort of vibe does the neighborhood have?
Yes, on the neighborhood, we have a community beside our house, and that's where our caretaker and help lives. And that's fine because it allows us to have some security from that point of view. We're not too isolated. Of course, we always tell them that if there's a guest to kind of keep down the karaoke and make sure that it's not too noisy. So they abide by that. And the thing that we like is that there's a restaurant nearby which is called OMG. It's a grill house. And one of the things that I love about it is the boneless pig roast. It's a pig roast that has really crispy skin and they took out the bones. So essentially, you can just cut through it and just chew on it, and you don't have to worry about biting or taking it off its bone. And it's one of the most flavorful signature dish of OMG that I could remember. And that's only probably 50 to 70 meters away. You can actually walk it and enjoy a cooked meal if you arrived in the property, which is quite late and you're kind of lazy to cook. So that's something that I would highly suggest.
Sounded delicious. About the immediate attractions that you have in Mabini that are close by to you. You already mentioned the track. Sorry, I didn't catch the name earlier, from where you can see the east to west,
Mhm.
sunrise to sunset. So, are there any other such spots as well?
Well, I would probably say that it and the enjoyment of the sunset that you would really take out of that vacation because we essentially we being the neighbor, don't really have a lot of those jet skis or those banana boats, which would make, you know, the frontage of the sea quite busy. It's not that kind of tourist market that I think Anilao is pushing. It's really more of diving and being able to enjoy the corals of the beach through snorkeling and enjoying the view of the sunset. And for me, I'm good enough with that because it's really quite difficult when you already see a lot of people bringing in their yachts, bringing in their boats, doing jet skis, having a lot of floaters because they're not natural and it distracts you from what you want to achieve, which is to relax. And this is what we offer. And I think that scarcity of what we have is already an advantage compared to the other establishments or the other beachfront areas that are within. And we may not be probably generating the revenues like a particular hotel or like a regular hotel, but we don't also have the cost and maintenance of those kinds of establishments. So net, we're still profitable, and it's good enough for it to maintain the house. It's good enough for me to have control on when people can come visit, because there are times where my family would like to visit and we're able to schedule a time where we can actually enjoy the property. So I think less is good in this particular instance, and I'm quite happy that we're able to provide that.
That's a great way to put it. Less is more. You don't get distracted from the main attraction, which is the sea. Yeah. I think we've covered most everything that I wanted to ask you about. My final question to you is about any tips or advice that you would want to share with prospective guests, or anything about that they shouldn't forget to bring when they're coming to Casa de Ligaya Anilao.
I think the thing that you shouldn't forget when you come to our transient home, Casa de Ligaya Anilao, is really to bring the food and drinks that you want to enjoy during your stay. Because that, in effect, will, again, build the experiences that you have. We don't ask much from what you need to bring, because too much things to be brought is clutter in your vacation. So for me, if you can actually bring your phone but not connect to the Wi-Fi, that'll be perfect. But if you really have to, we have a very good Wi-Fi connection. You can do your video conferences, your work, but don't forget to bring your favorite dish or ingredients and that bottle of wine and cheese, so that you can kick back, enjoy the day, and say, yes, I feel rejuvenated, and thank you, Casa de Ligaya Anilao, for making me a better person in this vacation.
That's lovely. I love this less is more approach. It's inspiring me to take a vacation. Yeah. So thank you so much, Patrick, for telling us all about your property, and it has been
Thank you.
lovely speaking to you.
Thank you, Ananya.